This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis.
Yeah, we're here. We're set to go. It's a busy couple of hours straight ahead on a Sunday. Live at hockeyunfiltered.com, streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app. Loaded up with a great lineup of guests as well. In hour number one, Isabelle Khurshudyan from the Washington Post will join us. We'll get the latest on the Washington Capitals. Oh, yeah, it's a busy Sunday, and the Caps are in action in Philly, taking on the Flyers. Also coming up, Adam Vingan from the Tennessean will join us with the latest on the Nashville Predators. How about that Central Division team in the West who look like they're on their way to a very nice season? First team to clinch, and they are in. That's just in hour number one. Hour number two, wall-to-wall with guests. Craig Button from tsn.ca will join us. We'll talk about the Leafs game last night with the Montreal Canadiens and a whole bunch of other stuff, including general managers meetings, which are coming up in the NHL. Luke Lapinski, Arizona Coyotes radio host, will join us. Yotes went down at the hands of the Minnesota Wild on Saturday night, but they have been playing some much better hockey over the last little while. Scott Billeck covers the Winnipeg Jets. Oh, yeah, Jets in action on Sunday as well, hosting the Dallas Stars. And Dallas really needs a victory. Should be a good lineup. Scott will join us. And yes, he's back with this week's Fantasy 5. Hashtag Fantasy 5. Help for you and your fantasy hockey pool. Stephen Laidlaw, the managing editor of DauberHockey.com, getting down to the short strokes in fantasy hockey. Playoffs are ongoing. The regular season is only a few weeks away. Stephen Laidlaw will have 5 names for you to keep in mind. Maybe get a little help in your fantasy hockey league. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Make sure you check out our Facebook page, website as well. As mentioned, we are live today for the next couple of hours with so much hockey talk. Thanks for enjoying the best of segments that we've run over the last week or so. Really happy to be back and live because there is so much going on in the NHL. It's great to be talking hockey with 3 weeks remaining in the regular season. There seems to be a little bit of separation starting in the Eastern Conference. In the West, it's still pretty tight as to which teams are going to be the final 8 that make it into the postseason. Oh, but there's still much to be determined in both the East and in the West in terms of which teams finish first or second or third or as a wild card in each of the divisions and conferences. It's going to be a good run down the stretch. It should be exciting. There should be some drama. There always is. And of course, it seems as though this happens every year. We get to this point in the NHL season. There's about 3 weeks or so to go. It's been kind of going on for about the last week, maybe. It's the annual discussion of, well, we really should change the playoff system. We really should change it and fix it and make it better. Oh, yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit later on. It just seems like the same old arguments, some of them pretty tired, as a matter of fact, get kind of churned up every year about this time because you get to the point in the season where it's like, well, I'm a little disappointed that this team isn't going to make it because, they did pretty well, or they came on late and they're going to come up short. Oh, we don't need to change everything every year. I'm not really in favor of changing the playoff system, especially increasing the number of teams going into the postseason. That's the dumbest idea going. But there's a lot of things going on in the NHL. There's a lot of good stuff going on that we want to talk about, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of great plays. Oh, there were some much anticipated matchups on Saturday with the Boston Bruins and Tampa. If you like the first one, they got a couple more coming over the next few weeks as well. Going back, it's probably almost 2 months ago now when Boston got on a bit of a roll. Tampa had that sensational start. Of course, they were just ripping off points and loading up the score on a bunch of teams. Everything was going really well for Tampa. And he kind of looked at it, and Boston started to go. And it was, you know what? I wonder if Boston's going to have a chance to catch the Tampa Bay Lightning. Wonder if they're going to do it. And they were still 10 points apart, but they had a bunch of games in hand, and they kind of seesawed back and forth. And now you look at it, and oh boy, that's going to be fun to watch going down the stretch now, isn't it? That's going to be a lot of fun going down the stretch now. The first of the 3 meetings that remained of the regular season occurred on Saturday. They go again in about a week and a half, and the final one, I believe, is April the 3rd between Boston and Tampa Bay. And yes, Boston comes up with a 3-0 shutout against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Torrey Krug has an assist on all 3 goals. A nice game. Tuukka Rask has the shutout, makes 23 saves. Andrei Vasilevskiy maybe wasn't quite himself. Maybe it wasn't quite as good as he has been at the start of the season. And I think it's natural, and I think it's understandable to maybe ask the question, is he kind of maybe feeling a little bit tired? This was a big win for the Bruins because they got thumped by the Florida Panthers. And then they got a little bit of, I guess, the Ponce de Leon fountain of youth in Florida, and came up with a nice win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. No Charlie McAvoy, no Patrice Bergeron, Jake DeBrusk is out. There's a whole bunch of players out for the Boston Bruins. And to come up and win this game, that was big. Is it defining? Is it a statement game? I guess maybe a little bit, until the next one, because they play again 2 more times before the end of the regular season. It was an important win. It was a significant win, as much as anything, because it closed the gap down to 2 points as the Bruins are now just 2 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning. Then, of course, we have to talk about the other injury that the Bruins sustained in the game. It was to David Backes, who collided with Yanni Gourde. The two were going hard to the net. There was a collision, and Yanni Gourde's skate kind of punctured the leg of David Backes, and you could see it was serious as he was heading to the bench. You could see the blood. Good for the officials to help hustle him off the ice as quickly as possible. Purely accidental. 2 guys doing what they're supposed to do, going to the net and trying to get to the puck. It's a collision. It's an accident. We don't see it very often where the skate slices the leg above the kneecap on the shin pad and below the pant leg. But that's what happened to David Backes. Had some stitches. He's going to be out for a little while. No further explanation as to how long as of yet, but we'll hope that he gets back quickly, because the Bruins have had enough injuries. And I'm not sure how you prevent this kind of injury. The socks that the players wear are cut resistant, but they are not cut proof. There are some new things that are being worked on and developed to help avoid skate cuts, and we're going to dive into that in the weeks ahead, because I got a line on a guy who's manufacturing something, but I'm not sure how you do this. And this is the one I'm thinking about is more for the ankles and the tendons around the skates that everybody's been focused on, but the leg lacerations are serious too. And I don't know what you do to stop that or prevent that, because can you make the socks out of cut-proof material? Or is it going to be like a suit of armor and chainmail that you see with knights, or butchers wear that over their fingers? And I don't know what you do to that. I don't know how you make it bulletproof like that. But good for the Boston Bruins to get that victory. So many players out of the lineup to get that victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Keep the pressure on. I think there's some legitimate questions about the Tampa Bay Lightning. They started off sizzling. Everything was going great. They've kind of slowed down a little bit, and it's not on purpose. It's not a conscious effort, but when you've got space on the rest of the competition, you've been up on top of the division since day number 1. You were scoring goals at will earlier on in the season. It's natural that you're going to relax, exhale just a little bit, take a breath, and relax, and understand that you're well into the playoff picture. But now the Bruins are kind of giving them something that they're going to have to fight for over the last little while if they want to stay on top of the Atlantic Division, because that's not a guarantee. It's now to the point where Boston's only 2 points behind. Tampa thought, we're cruising, we're way ahead of everybody, scoring goals at will. Things have kind of, I don't know if they've sort of caught up to the Tampa Bay Lightning as much as the Bruins have continued to grow as the season moves along, even in spite of all the injuries that they've had. The good news is we get 2 more games. Are they going to meet in the postseason? Maybe. Not guaranteed, but maybe. The other team in the Atlantic Division that will meet either Boston or Tampa in the first round? Would it be Boston? I don't know. Could be. Probably. Maybe. Hard to tell yet. Boston gets a couple players back and keeps moving, and Tampa sags a little bit. Maybe not. But they've both been going on at a pretty good clip. Even though Tampa hasn't been as dominant as they were at the start of the season, they're still winning a lot of games. Boston just won the extra one here and there to make up a little bit of ground. But the Maple Leafs, the other team in the Atlantic Division, had another Saturday night contest against their traditional rivals, Montreal Canadiens. It has been a miserable year for Montreal. And was there ever really a doubt that Toronto was going to win this game on Saturday night? I don't think so. Nice touch by Brendan Gallagher, some of the Montreal Canadiens, just kind of a little recognition and tribute to their former teammate, Thomas Plekanec. They wore turtlenecks during the warm-up. That's good. See, that's fun. That's clever. That's a nice tribute, something a little different. I like that. That was good. And then the Leafs took them apart in the game. I don't know. I'm as much as anything, I'm intrigued as to see what happens with the Montreal Canadiens in the offseason. Jeff Molson has said he has confidence in Marc Bergevin. He's coming back. He's going to be the guy who's apparently going to make the necessary changes to get the team into the playoffs. And the first question is that we hear that expression so often this time of year is that, we've had a disappointing season and we're going to make some changes. We're going to improve and we're going to get ourselves back into the playoffs. And while that's positive and I guess a good goal, it's only a starting point. Shouldn't you be saying our objective is to win the Stanley Cup? Yeah, we want to get into the playoffs, but we want to win. That's the objective, and we're creating a long-term plan to do that. Be competitive on a yearly basis and win the Stanley Cup. I think everybody gets hung up on we're going to make a few changes. We want to get faster, or we want to add more skill, or we want to add some size, whatever the requirement a team feels they need, so we can get back into the playoffs. That's not the goal. The goal is to win the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup. I think teams get caught up in that. We'll rejig things. We'll get back into the Stanley Cup. Create the long-term strategy. It's about not just winning a game and getting into the playoffs, maybe winning a round. It's about winning the prize. I want a general manager and I want a team that says that our goal is to win the Stanley Cup and we're going to do everything that we can. The other problem with Montreal is I don't think Marc Bergevin has a grasp on what's wrong with the Canadiens. And I guess kind of by default, I'm not sure that Jeff Molson does either, because he says he has confidence in Marc Bergevin. I'm not sure he's the guy to be working on fixing the mess. And the other thing I'm concerned about with the Canadiens is they're going to get through the rest of the season, couple of more weeks, play the games. They might win one or two. And then we'll have the end of the year presser that every team that misses the postseason will do. And I'm sure that we're going to have Marc Bergevin come out and say, yes, we had some disappointments. And I don't think that we did as well as we could have been. But we also had some injuries that really hurt us. Shea Weber's now gone for 6 months. Carey Price has been out for a while. Brendan Gallagher, Andrew Shaw, just about everybody else has been injured at one point in time with the Montreal Canadiens. And I'm worried that Marc Bergevin is going to say, if we can stay healthy next year, make a couple of changes, I think we can get back into the playoffs. That's not good enough. You're not a good enough team. Remember a couple years ago, Carey Price got hurt late in November. And Marc Bergevin blamed their terrible season on, we had no Carey Price, so, we lost a lot of games. We get Carey Price back and we're fine. No, you're not. You are far from fine. I don't think Marc Bergevin has a concept of how the game is played now and what it's going to take to be successful. I think that's the problem. Other teams, watch them. You see the game changing and evolving. Faster, skill. It's not about guys that, they have a lot of passion and they have a lot of heart for the game. Sure, that's a requirement, but it's not the only requirement. I think it's going to be interesting to watch. But so are the playoff races going down the stretch in both the East and in the West. I don't think we're going to have it all decided till the final day or two before the end of the regular season. We may not know matchups right until the end of the regular season, which is part of why we enjoy it. One of those teams competing, of course, the Washington Capitals. They're in tight with the Pittsburgh Penguins for top spot in the Metro. It's going to be fun to watch coming up after the break. Isabelle Khurshudyan from the Washington Post will join us. We'll talk a little Caps. Out west, the Nashville Predators. Yes, they're in. They've clinched. Will they win the Central? Kind of looks like it. Adam Vingan will join us later on this hour. Also coming up on the program, Craig Button will join us, Luke Lapinski, Coyotes radio host, Scott Billeck covering the Winnipeg Jets, and Stephen Laidlaw also with us covering this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. We are back with a full house of guests today, streaming live at hockeyunfiltered.com and on the Hockey Unfiltered app powered by Primetime Radio. We'll talk Washington Capitals right after the break. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. Cutting-edge design for manufacturing, Nova Product Design. Industrial design, mechanical engineering and design. Nova Product Design provides experienced design for parts and assemblies, manufacturing, assembly, and serviceability. From plastic parts to sheet metal forming, mold and tool design, injection molding, and more. Nova Product Design. Visit novaproductdesign.com to learn more. So you had to get groceries, take your daughter to dance class, and a pipe burst in the kitchen. You missed Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. No problem. All of our shows are available as a podcast right after the show airs, so you can listen when life gets in the way of hearing us live. Subscribe through iTunes and get alerts as soon as the podcast is available, or go to our website, hockeyunfiltered.com, and listen. Plus, check out the other cool stuff. The Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis podcast. Subscribe now through iTunes. Welcome back. This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. It's the Sunday edition, Saturdays and Sundays, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com, streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app. It's available for download at the App Store. Also live on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube Live. It is a busy Sunday as well. Nice 9-game schedule. This is good. We like the busy Sundays with the football all over with. Now we get busy Sundays, including a great matchup that starts in the late afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern start with the Washington Capitals at the Philadelphia Flyers. Philly played on Saturday in Carolina. They have to travel back. This is a good setup for the Washington Capitals. Isabelle Khurshudyan covers the Capitals for the Washington Post. You can follow her on Twitter at @Khurshudyan, and she joins us now. Isabelle, the question everybody keeps asking for the Washington Capitals over the last little while is who's playing goal today? So who's playing goal for the Caps today against Philly?
Yeah, I still don't know. If I had to guess, I mean, I think they'll go back to Philip Grubauer just because he's played so well and he's probably earned it. And then they can maybe switch back to Holtby for the home game against the Dallas Stars. But I'm not sure. It's a tricky thing because you want to get Braden Holtby's confidence up. You want him to be your, number one guy that he's been for so long. And, but, he had a good game against Toronto in the Stadium Series, and then they started him again the next game, and he allowed 3 goals on 9 shots. And the stakes are just kind of higher right now with playing the Flyers, who are right there in the division race, and also playing them without Kuznetsov, and just kind of need the points. And I feel like Grubauer has been more consistent, so I think that's what they'll do. But I'm not sure yet.
And I guess it's still a TBD as terms of the Capitals goaltender moving forward on almost a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, because if the inconsistency remains in Braden Holtby's game, he's not going to be starting every playoff game by default the way we've seen the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think they want him to be that guy for them. I think they're trying to give him time. You know, I think in their heads they still consider him the number one goalie, but you know, I think they just need a bigger sample size of him playing consistently and playing well and looking like, you know, the Braden Holtby we've always kind of known here the past 3 years. And until then, I do think they're going to kind of go back and forth a little bit, just because really since late November, Grubauer has been, you know, one of the best goalies in the league statistically. So it's hard to, I don't know what kind of message it sends if you don't give that guy playing time too, because he's earned it. So I think it is a little bit of a balance right now, and trying to, you know, win games first and foremost, but also, like I said, Grubauer's earned it, but also you want to let Holtby work through all of this too.
Yeah, and I agree with you that Braden Holtby's the number one guy. This is just a difficult period of time that he happens to be going through personally, and this is not unusual for goaltenders of an elite status to have. Brent Johnson had a really good series of tweets about that a few days ago, and he talked about the mental aspect, and I can understand that, having to play so much, especially since Braden Holtby is one of those workhorse type goaltenders, that you are going to become a little mentally and physically tired. And I don't think it's a cause for panic necessarily, because we've seen teams use more than one goaltender and have very successful regular seasons and playoff seasons. And all you have to do is look back to the Pittsburgh Penguins as the best example.
For sure. And I think the Caps would like to have one goalie going into the playoffs, definitely. But for now, I mean, there's 11 games left. I think they should utilize both, kind of keep both guys fresh, and you know, whoever's playing better, maybe that's just who they go with in the playoffs. But, you know, right now it's hard to take Grubauer out of the net. But like I said, they're also invested in Holtby and kind of getting his game back to that elite level.
And that makes perfect sense for them as a team, as an organization. I don't want to say that it's been a distraction, but it's something that's sort of the attention of the Washington Capitals that everyone is giving them right now. Unlike the last couple of years where it's all about the expectation of you'll get in, you'll probably win the President's Trophy, and the expectation is you're going to the Stanley Cup final. This is a different kind of a vibe and a different kind of feel, call it a distraction if you want, of the team as we approach the playoff season.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still quite a few things in flux, you know, but I don't really buy that it's been a distraction just because their game has been improving lately. They had 5 straight games where, you know, they allowed fewer than 30 shots on goal. They, you know, they've now won 4 in a row. It seems like they are kind of hitting a little bit of a stride and starting to play a little bit more consistently than we've seen at times. So that's all positive. You know, usually the Caps have, you know, the President's Trophy locked up, or at least that's been the case for the past 2 years. You know, this time of year, the games haven't really mattered a whole lot to them. In this case, there's been so much kind of inconsistency and questions about goaltending, questions about defense, you know, all these different things that right now these games matter in the sense that they're trying to just kind of find their game and, you know, find something stable going into the playoffs. And the goaltending is obviously part of that, but I do think they're starting to kind of be a little steadier. You know, losing Kuznetsov, I don't know how serious that injury is, but he at least won't play today. That's going to hurt, but you know, it is an interesting time for the Caps in the sense that I feel like these last 11 games are still going to tell us a lot about what team we'll see in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is, I was going to say interesting is probably the best word for to describe the Caps going down the final few weeks of the season. With Kuznetsov out, there's inevitably going to be a little bit of line juggling, and maybe Barry Trotz and the Caps take that as a bit of an opportunity to see what else they might have in terms of combinations and what might work should they have to be without Kuznetsov for a few games.
Yeah, and they finally, those past two games against the Islanders, albeit the Islanders aren't a great defensive team, but the Caps did get a lot of scoring from players who are not Alex Ovechkin, which, has been hard to come by all season. He scored like 20% of their goals this year. And so these two games against the Islanders, they put up 13 goals, and none of them were from Ovechkin. And so with Kuznetsov out, it's another kind of opportunity to get, some other guys going. They need scoring from TJ Oshie more consistently that's been, and now he has 3 goals in the past 2 games. They need Andre Burakovsky to get going. They need Jacob Verana to chip in here and there. Backstrom. So when you have, Kuznetsov is the second leading goal scorer to Ovechkin. He's got 21 goals to Ovechkin's 42. They're going to need production from other people, and with him being out, that's maybe an opportunity to see some more of that.
Isabelle Khurshudyan is our guest, covers the Capitals for the Washington Post. At @Khurshudyan is how you follow her on Twitter. Caps and the Philadelphia Flyers in a contest on Sunday afternoon, a 5 p.m. Eastern start. The other thing that we're a little bit removed from now, but I like the acquisitions that the Washington Capitals made leading up to the trade deadline. They picked up a couple of defensemen, but it wasn't, here's someone the way they brought in Kevin Shattenkirk last year, someone who's supposed to save us and make our power play fantastic. They brought in Yarabak and they brought in Michael Kempney. It's just, here's some depth, here's some help, here's some reinforcements if we need them. And I think that's good to have, but I think it also expresses a little bit of confidence in the young players that have been finding their way in the Caps defensive lineup all season long.
Yeah, and those two guys are out right now. Juice and Yarabak are sort of rotating, but Bowie's been sent down to Hershey. But they were kind of between a rock and a hard place because they don't have a lot of picks, into the future, and they want to kind of start to hold on to those just because they've traded away so many with their recent deals. So it's a balance of considering the future, but also wanting to win now. And last year was just win now, and we'll worry about the future later. So later's here, and they have to think about it. And I think they tried to make improvements without paying some ridiculous prices. And Kempney is one of those where it's a 3rd round pick, sure, but he's playing top 4 minutes. They put him beside John Carlson. There's some mobility there, and it does look better. It's a little bit more stable than rotating Orpik and Juice with Carlson and kind of him splitting his minutes a little bit. And Yarabak, it's a good, maybe a little bit more experienced alternative to Juice if you need that in the playoffs. I think they're figuring out who between Juice and Yarabak is going to be the best fit with Orpik. And I also like the moves they made for kind of the situation they were in. They couldn't, afford a McDonough or Carlson, but they kind of went for the right kind of player, a puck mover, and did it for a pretty reasonable price.
And just before I let you go, we haven't talked about Alex Ovechkin yet, other than you saying that he scored most of the goals in terms of percentage for the Washington Capitals. Maybe he needs someone to ask him about when he's going to get 50 again, because he's been quiet for a couple of games, and I know he wants to get 50 goals. And honestly, I'd love him to get 50 goals because the enthusiasm that he shows when he scores or when anyone scores, it's as genuine as it was when he came into the league.
Yeah, I think he can do it. 8 goals left, 8 goals to 50 in 11 games left. So certainly possible, especially if he gets like 2 in a game or something like that. So we'll see. I remember a couple of years ago, it looked like he wasn't going to get to 50, and they scored a hat trick in the second to last game of the year to get to 50 against St. Louis. So I could totally, when he has his mind set on doing something, he's going to do it. And I think this might be one of those situations where especially if he's close down the stretch, you're going to see him really kind of going for it and shooting every puck. And it's pretty obvious when he's really going after something, you know, how he plays and, you know, how it's almost like undeniable. So I wouldn't bet against him. I think he's still going to get it done, but we'll see.
I hope so. I really do. Isabelle Khurshudyan from the Washington Post, covering the Capitals. At Khurshudyan is how you follow her on Twitter. Thanks for this as always, Isabelle. We appreciate the time. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I really hope that Alex Ovechkin gets 50 and celebrates and enjoys it thoroughly. He and his teammates sure seem to. And yes, I know. I don't think he needed to be straightened out as some do. You're right. He was much more about goal scoring and has become a little more focused on the team and wants to win a Stanley Cup. But then that was always there. That was always part of him. He wanted to be in the NHL. He wanted to win a Stanley Cup. It wasn't just about being selfish and only scoring goals. He's matured a little. He didn't need to be straightened out. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles to follow us. Loaded up with guests coming up. Craig Button from TSN, TSN.ca. Luke Lapinski, Coyotes radio host. Scott Billeck covering the Winnipeg Jets for the Winnipeg Sun and the NHL on NBC Sports. And Stephen Laidlaw with the Fantasy 5 also coming up. Hashtag Fantasy 5. Lots to get to on the Sunday edition, including Nashville Predators talk when we come back. Adam Vingan from the Tennessean will join us right after the break.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Look, we know it happens. Life gets in the way and sometimes you can't catch the live edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. But we've made it easy for you to catch up on the show you might have missed. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis is available as a podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Blog Talk Radio. You don't want to miss an episode. If you missed the live show, check out the podcast. Don't miss any shows. There's a test coming up later. Subscribe now. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Use the code Get the Savings. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis listeners save with Seat Giant and the promo code TODD. That's TODD at SeatGiant.com. Just log on to SeatGiant.com to find the best tickets to NHL games, concerts, or whatever you want and save. Use the promo code TODD. That's TODD when you check out and you save. Canadian listeners can save at SeatGiant.ca. That's SeatGiant.com and .ca. Cutting-edge design for manufacturing, Nova Product Design, industrial design, mechanical engineering and design. Nova Product Design provides experienced design for parts and assemblies, manufacturing, assembly, and serviceability. From plastic parts to sheet metal forming, mold and tool design, injection molding, and more. Nova Product Design. Visit novaproductdesign.com to learn more.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, Sunday edition. It continues with a busy guest lineup. Luke Lapinski will join us, the radio host for the Arizona Coyotes. Scott Billeck talking Winnipeg Jets and Dallas Stars in a Sunday contest. Stephen Laidlaw, the managing editor from DobberHockey.com, will be here. Craig Button from TSN, TSN.ca as well. A nice busy Sunday, a nice schedule of games. As mentioned, it's the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets. St. Louis is in Chicago. That's a nice location rivalry game, although looks like both those teams are going to miss the postseason. I know St. Louis hasn't gone away completely. I'm just not convinced that they're getting there. Washington and Philly, an interesting contest as well. Nashville Predators have the day off on Sunday. They will be back in action against the Buffalo Sabres coming up on Monday. Adam Vingan covers the Predators for the Tennessean. You can follow him on Twitter at Adam Vingan. And Adam, for a team that is settled and into the postseason, they have guaranteed themselves a spot, and it looks like they're going to win the Central Division. There's still a few questions about the Nashville Predators as we get through the final few weeks of the season and before we start the playoffs. How are the lines going to shape up, because there are reinforcements potentially coming to the Nashville Predators lineup soon?
Yes. I wrote a story on Tennessean.com yesterday after they clinched that playoff spot by defeating the Colorado Avalanche, and led with the question, how do you improve the team that has everything? I mean, the Predators are on a 14-game point streak. They haven't lost in regulation on the road. They haven't lost in regulation on the road in more than 2 months. They're coasting towards their first ever Central Division title and potentially their first ever President's Trophy. So there really isn't a lot to think about how this team can improve without doing some serious nitpicking. Now, of course, they think that they could still improve despite the fact that they've been rampaging through the schedule for the past several months, really. But to your point, Todd, the reinforcements that you're referring to the main reinforcement is their first-round draft pick from last June, Ellie Tolvanen, who had a record-breaking season in the KHL, the best under-19 season in KHL history, had a great Olympic performance for Finland, and is currently in the second round of the KHL playoffs, and his team is down 2-0. So if that team is swept, his season could end Tuesday, and the Predators and Tolvanen's collective goal is to sign a contract with the Predators and come over to the NHL. Where would he fit? That's a good question. I just answered that actually in a Q&A story I just posted on Tennessean.com. My opinion on the matter is I don't think that they should break up the top two lines to accommodate Tolvanen. So Philip Forsberg, Ryan Johansson, and Victor Arvidsson, we know how well they play together. They don't play as well together when they're not together. When they're apart, they aren't as productive. Now, the line of Kevin Fiala, Kyle Turris, and Craig Smith has been fantastic since Turris was traded to Nashville in early November. You don't want to break that up either. Now, I think you would look good on the line with Ryan Hartman, a trade deadline acquisition, and Nick Bonino. Could be a little HPK thing there with Nick Bonino, of course, when he had Carl Hagelin and Phil Kessel with him in Pittsburgh a few seasons ago. But it's a good problem to have when you can put a guy, who had close to a 40-point season in the KHL on your third line. It speaks to the depth that the Predators have in their organization.
That would seem to be the logical choice, because as you mentioned, those lines are going, and you don't want to bring Tolvanen in and throw him into the deep end, even though he is such a prized prospect, seems to be on a trajectory to have success in the National Hockey League. You don't want to push him in too quickly and give him too much too quickly and disrupt the chemistry of your team.
Well, what's interesting, Todd, is that at the end of the trade deadline, David Poile said that the reason why he acquired Ryan Hartman versus a player, a more high-end winger, of course, those were very rumored to be available. Players like Rick Nash, who went to Boston, or Evander Kane, who went to San Jose, players of that ilk. The reason why the Predators didn't go for one of that type of player was they didn't want to be redundant, and they didn't want to take a spot away from Tolvanen. They figured that Tolvanen's trajectory, would be stunted if they were to have a player like Rick Nash, for example, just throwing a hypothetical name out there, on their roster. But you look at players who have done similar things to what Tolvanen may do over the past couple of years. Most of them have come out of college. Charlie McAvoy, for example, signed an entry-level contract at the end of his collegiate season last year, joined the Bruins in the playoffs. I believe he had 3 assists in 6 first-round games. If you go back 6 years ago, Chris Kreider did the same thing for the New York Rangers. He had 5 goals and about 17 postseason games for the Rangers. You can hope that Tolvanen pitches in, but you're not expecting him to be the go-to goal scorer on this team. He's going to complement players like Victor Arvidsson, Kevin Fiala, Craig Smith, Philip Forsberg, etc. on the wings. He's not going to be a player who's going to lead this team to a Stanley Cup, but he could be a part of it for sure. And I think that's what the Predators and their fans need to do, is temper expectations. He's going to be, he projects to be a great fit, but don't expect him to be that, don't expect him to have a fantastic start right away in the playoffs.
Adam Vingan is our guest, covers the Nashville Predators for the Tennessean. At Adam Vingan is how you follow him on Twitter. Preds in action next on Monday against the Buffalo Sabres. I like that word in terms of that you use with compliment. It seems as though David Poile has gone about this season in a very methodical approach, even going back to last summer, understanding that at the time with the retirement of Mike Fisher, that there was going to be a need at center. So they brought in Nick Bonino. He made the deal for Kyle Turris, and then of course, Mike Fisher comes back to add even more depth, but it's in a complementary role. It provides you a lot of depth and a lot of options at different positions.
Right, and you look at, as you mentioned, the moves that they've made since last summer. You mentioned signing Nick Bonino, signing Scott Hartnell after he was bought out by the Columbus Blue Jackets, trading for Kyle Turris, trading for Ryan Hartman, convincing Mike Fisher to forego retirement temporarily. Yeah, they have the core that they need, signed long term. Victor Arvidsson, Philip Forsberg, Ryan Johansson. You can include Kyle Turris in that now that he has a 6-year contract kicking in next season. Roman Josi, PK Subban, Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm. These players are under contract for at least the next couple of years. So it's about buttressing that core with those veteran type players and those role players. And think about the players that have stepped up this season. I think Ryan Hartman has been a fantastic addition. He's played very well since he got here. Colton Sissons, who had a star-making moment in Game 6 of the Western Conference Final last year with a hat trick, had his first multi-goal game since that hat trick against the Colorado Avalanche to help the Predators clinch the playoff spot. Austin Watson has become a shorthanded goal-scoring machine and has started to show his potential that the Predators were hoping to get out of them when they drafted him in the first round several years ago. They're getting those contributions from everybody, which is what this team demonstrated during the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. 18 forwards last year played at least 5 playoff games for this team. And you think about some of the players that stepped up in those situations, like Harry Zolnarchuk or Vernon Fiddler or Cody McLeod, players that you wouldn't expect to have big moments in the playoffs. We're all involved in some way in helping the Predators win games up into the Stanley Cup final. And the Predators, I think, are a better team today than they were at any point last season, not just in the standings, which is obvious, but just on the team. Having Ryan Hartman as a third line player, Nick Bonino being in that third line role that he's supposed to be in, I think, and thrived in as he showed in Pittsburgh. The prospect of Ellie Tolvanen coming over. Colton Sissons and Austin Watson joining with Mike Fisher for what is a pretty good fourth line. I mean, you're going to find it difficult to find a deeper team in the NHL than the Nashville Predators. And I'm not even talking about their defense, which we always talk about, and how well Pecorino has been playing this season. So, I mean, this team was expected at the beginning of last season to be a Stanley Cup dark horse. They ultimately made it there, even though that their path there was a little bit tenuous for a little while. But this team is running away with everything, it seems, this season. I mean, in my opinion, and of course, I see them every day, so it's different, but I can't think of a team in the NHL, I only can think of a couple, that would give this team a scare in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Adam, I think the other thing we're going to hear over the next couple of weeks and into the postseason are the cliches that David Poile has pushed all his chips into the middle of the table. They're going for it. The Predators are all in this year. But I think as you detailed, because their core is under contract, under manageable contracts for the next number of years, is that this isn't, we're just going to throw everything at it and go for it this year. This is a team built that can be Stanley Cup contenders for a number of years to come.
Right, and keep in mind that Victor Arvidsson and Ryan Johansson are each in the first years of long-term contracts. Ryan Johansson signed an 8-year contract last summer. Victor Arvidsson signed a 7-year contract. Philip Forsberg is in the second year of a 6-year contract. Roman Josi still has a couple of years left. Ryan Ellis has one more year after this. PK Subban's long-term. Matthias Ekholm has, I think, 3 years after this. Kyle Turris is 5 years after this. Craig Smith has, I think, 2 or 3 years after this. Kevin Fiala still has a year left on his entry-level contract, I believe. You have everything in place. I mean, really the biggest question in terms of this group as is they really only have maybe this year and next year, maybe the year after that, to win this Stanley Cup with Pekka Rinne. He has a year left on his contract after this one. He should be the runaway favorite for the Vezina Trophy. He's been playing lights out hockey all season long. I think a lot of people saw how he played in the playoffs last year and just thought it was, a lucky run of a couple of months. You see how he's been playing this year. In the calendar year 2018, he's 22-1. That's his record. And if he wins tomorrow against Buffalo, where I believe he's planning to start against Buffalo, he will tie his career record for the longest winning streak at 11 games. And keep in mind, the longest winning streak by a goaltender in NHL history is 17 games, which if he plays as many games as I think he is down the stretch and continues to win, he could break that record. He's been playing well enough to do so. I think that really comes down to it, is that this team is in position to win for several years, but with Pekka Rinne as their starting goaltender, they may only have 1 or 2 left.
They do seem to have the next goaltender, though, with Jussi Saros, who also has played pretty well for the Nashville Predators when he's been called upon. You think that Pekka Rinne is going to play enough to maybe even go for that record down the stretch? Though I wondered how much he might play to make sure that he is comfortable and rested and ready to go for a long postseason run.
Well, they have 11 games left on their schedule, and they have 2 sets of back-to-back next Saturday and Sunday, a big back-to-back at Minnesota and at Winnipeg. And then the following week, a home-road back-to-back against the Sabres, actually at home, and then at Tampa, and a matchup that really should be must-see. So you figure that that's at least 2 starts for Jussi Saros, and I imagine he'll get at least 1 more, if not 2. So I would say Pekka probably starts 7 or 8 of the remaining games for the Predators. But Jussi Saros has been just as good in a backup role. Won against the Avalanche on Friday, and what was a big game for Colorado is they're in that cluster of teams fighting for positioning in the Western Conference. He got off to a rocky start, at least statistically, but he has settled in over the last several months and has played very well. He appears to be the heir apparent to Pekka Rinne, but they're in no rush to accelerate that succession plan. Pekka Rinne, we know him as a very humble and a very kind human being, but he has one of the most competitive, one of the fiercest competitive streaks of any player I've ever covered. You literally have to pry him out of the net sometimes. He wants to be in there every game. So, Pekka Rinne understands he's 35 years old. He's not getting any younger, but he looks like he's in the prime of his career with the way that he's been playing. He does not want to give up that crease anytime soon.
Adam Vingan covering the Nashville Predators for the Tennessean. At Adam Vingan is how you follow him on Twitter. Adam, I always enjoy the visit. Thanks for the time, and I suspect with the Preds and poised for a long playoff run, we'll be talking again soon.
Yes, I'm sure. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Adam. Adam Vingan covering the Nashville Predators for the Tennessean. That is a stacked lineup, and yes, it is a lineup that has a foundation and has a core that is signed to comfortable, affordable contracts for a number of years to come. Sure, there will be pieces that move in and out of the lineup, but this is a Nashville Predators team that is going to be very difficult, especially after having the experience that they have over the last season or two, just to go through the postseason. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports. Looking forward to the whole anthem singer drama again. Who's going to come out and who's going to sing the anthem at the Nashville Predators home playoff games? They had great country stars last year. I'm looking forward to more of that this year. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles to follow us. A loaded second hour with guests. A couple of other stories that we want to get to before the top of the hour as well. Oh, and we need to change the playoffs. Oh, the general managers are meetings. Oh, because the goaltender interference is going to be discussed. Anybody expecting a big resolution to that issue, not even to call it a problem, it's an issue, is mistaken. We'll get into that, and we'll talk more about it with Craig Button, former NHL general manager, all coming up as well. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, back after the break.
The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Being on the World Wide Web is great. Being found is the tricky part. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization is the only way your business can get a leg up on the competition. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. For the necessary tools to make your business stand out in a crowded marketplace, 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday.
Welcome back. This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, Sunday edition. Join us Saturdays and Sundays, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com. Streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app, available for download at the App Store, all powered by Primetime Radio. Check us out, Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube Live. And don't forget about our little Saturday podcast, our midweek hockey podcast that drop on Wednesday afternoons. It's a little bit of the weekend in the middle of the week, and that's why we call it the Little Saturday Podcast. Just our way of keeping the conversation going. Usually some pretty interesting stories and info that I'll put up on our Facebook page and up on our website as well. Check it out. And we look forward to it every Saturday and Sunday at 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. 3 weeks to go until the NHL season is done. There's one game that was added 3 weeks from today. It's the makeup game between the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. I don't know how important it's going to be at that time. I think Florida missed a big opportunity on Saturday night trying to keep pace and win a game, and they didn't win the game, and that's going to probably wind up costing them. Even though I was a little skeptical anyhow, but they lost 4-2 to the Edmonton Oilers. I wasn't sure that Florida was going to make it. Good run that they've been on. Good for them to sort of get themselves pointed in the right direction. They got really screwed up a year ago. It took a while with the new coaching staff and some new players coming in to sort of get the thing pointed in the right direction, but I think they're going to fall a little bit short. Still some playoff spots to be decided, and now that we're into the late stages of the season, we get the annual argument of, oh, we have to fix the playoffs. Oh, we have to change the playoff system. It seems like it happens almost every year about this time. The outrage of a team that has a good record but is going to miss the playoffs. The objective of the 82-game regular season schedule is to eliminate teams. It's not to make the playoffs bigger so that everybody makes it and there's a large group that gets it. It is to eliminate teams. We want to eliminate teams from postseason play. First of all, see, there's the one miss. It sort of got poked and stirred up a few days ago because Pierre LeBrun from The Athletic did a quickie survey with NHL general managers who said, hey, you know, would you be in favor of expanding the playoffs? And of course, the majority response was, well, yes, we would be in favor of expanding the playoffs because it's good for them. If they get in, they have way more job security than if they miss the postseason. So of course NHL general managers are going to be in favor of it. And now we have the suggestions of what type of expanded playoff. Should it be a one-game play-in between an 8th and a 9th seed in the East and the West? Or should it be a short series, maybe a 2 out of 3? You could have a little tournament, if you will, and maybe go as much as 10 teams. These are suggestions from general managers and from fans. So let me get this straight. We spend months complaining about how long the NHL season is, and people want to expand it by adding to the playoffs. Isn't that kind of counterintuitive? I want to shorten the season. I don't want to make it longer. And no, I don't want more teams in the playoffs. 1,000,000%. No, we don't need more teams in the playoffs. The objective of the regular season, eliminate teams and pare down to a reasonable number to compete for the championship. And I've always hear this one too. Well, in the 21-team NHL, 16 teams used to make the playoffs. Now we're at 31. We'll be at 32 once Seattle comes in a few years, and there are still 16 teams that make the playoffs. Well, just because they did something dumb then doesn't mean you should keep doing it. 16 out of 21 making the playoffs was a dumb idea. That was a ridiculous point in NHL history. Having that many teams making the playoffs, you play a full season and chop off 5? That's crazy. I don't care if the rounds were shorter. It's wrong. Half your league making the playoffs is plenty. That is a reasonable recipe. Now, there's also the suggestion of perhaps changing the way the playoffs are conducted, as opposed to having divisional matchups where you have regular rivals that you do play more than everyone else. Maybe we go back to an East-West. The number 1 seed takes on the number 8 seed. Number 2 takes on number 7, et cetera, for the opening round. I'd probably be okay with that, even if you wanted to speed it up. And I would really be okay with it once the league does grow to 32 teams in a few years, whenever that works out. Because you can adjust the schedule at that point. Now, I still want everybody plays the other team at least once, home and away. If you do that with the entire league, you play the other 31 teams home and away. Well, that gets you to 62 games pretty quickly. Then you play your conference one more time. You alternate home and away. Get you to 77. Ooh, that's pretty good. And that's the number. That's the schedule. We should shorten the season. Cut it down from an 82 game, lop off a week or a week and a half, and you can shorten the schedule. I would be way more in favor of that than this, oh, we should have extra teams in the playoffs. That's like giving out participation medals. So you get a team that is 32, 32, and 20. Oh, yeah, they should make the playoffs because they're 500. No, they shouldn't. The idea is to pare down the competition. We already have 4 rounds of playoffs, best of 7. We do not need more playoffs. Oh, yeah, but isn't NHL playoff hockey great? It is. It's fantastic. But if you add more to it, you dilute the product. You also take away the importance of the regular season. That's 2 negatives, and they don't add up to a positive. No more playoffs. 16 is plenty. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles a loaded second hour coming up with guests Stephen Laidlaw, Scott Billeck, Luke Lapinski, Craig Button. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, hour number 2, Hockey Unfiltered, back after the break.
There's special savings for Hockey Unfiltered listeners with our new ticket partner, Seat Giant. And Canadian fans can also purchase in Canadian dollars. Go to SeatGiant.ca, find the tickets you're looking for. Doesn't matter if it's NHL games, concerts, or any other event. You get a special discount with the promo code TODD. That's Todd with 2 Ds. Just enter the code, get the discount, you save. That's simple. Save on your next ticket purchase with Hockey Unfiltered and Seat Giant. The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Search engine optimization is the key to success for your online business. It can be the key to success for any business. 1-844-SEO-LEAD is the number to call to get your business at the top of all searches. An official partner of Google, they have the tools necessary to make your business the one people notice first. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now you can nominate your dog or any dog you love as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day through Instagram. Every Saturday, Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis will take your nominations for the Dog of the Day. Use the hashtag #HUDogoftheDay. Send us a photo with the dog on Twitter or Instagram to nominate your dog. We choose a winner at the end of the show, and your dog will be recognized in the HU Dog of the Day gallery on our website and Facebook page. Hashtag #HUDogoftheDay. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more.
This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis.
This is hour number 2 of the Sunday show. Loaded, full, stacked, wall-to-wall guests. Craig Button from TSN and TSN.ca, analyst, opinionist, will join us in just a couple of minutes. Lapinski, Arizona Coyotes radio host, will join us. Yotes fell on Saturday, but are playing much better hockey. Clayton Keller. He and other good young talent on that roster. Scott Billeck with news on the Winnipeg Jets. Jets, Dallas Stars, good Central Division matchup on Sunday on a busy Sunday schedule. And there's some good news for Jets fans as well. We'll save that and let you know. But your lineup will be bolstered this evening. And Stephen Laidlaw, our Sunday regular, with the Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, at Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles to follow us. A busy first hour, and we are loaded up, as mentioned, in the second hour with so much to get to, including games with playoff implications, a big victory for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They continue their winning streak. General managers meetings coming up. We'll get into as much as we can with our next guest from TSN, tsn.ca. Follow him on Twitter at Craig J. Button, and Craig joins us now. Craig, thanks for the time on Sunday. How about that victory last night by the Toronto Maple Leafs? They just kind of showed the Montreal Canadiens what a good team needs to be and have.
Well, you know, exactly, and well put. You know, the Montreal Canadiens have had a season where they've wallowed at the bottom of the standings. And, you know, it's interesting, you know, you listen to the different conversations around Montreal, and they talk about, well, Carey Price wasn't playing, and, you know, Shea Weber wasn't playing, and Max Pacioretty wasn't playing. Well, the Leafs didn't have Frederik Andersen playing last night, or Austin Matthews, or Nikita Zaitsev. So, you know, when you consider how far away the Montreal Canadiens are from being a team that can even be talked about in the class of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think it's pretty striking. And, you know, I know they have some injuries, but this is a team that is, I use the term, Todd, square pegs and round holes. And, you know, back in November, that was evident that that was what their team was. And I think it's been a challenge for them. But I think switching focus to the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're playing very, very well. And what's interesting to me is that Mike Babcock, you know, a lot of people say, oh, he's stubborn. Oh, he won't make changes and whatnot. And, you know, coaches need to be stubborn. They need to have belief. But Mike is not blind to what his team needs. And he made a couple of real significant changes in his lineup when he put Kasperi Kapanen into the lineup to add more speed. They called up Travis Dermott. Travis Dermott stepped in on the blue line and provided really good play. He wanted more speed in the lineup. And, you know, when you consider how the Toronto Maple Leafs play, how they use that speed everywhere in all situations, I think it's something that shows that Mike Babcock not only is adaptable, but will adapt. But he's going to adapt on his terms. He's not going to just do it because somebody else says he does it. And, you know, Ken Hitchcock earlier this week or last week talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he says they make you pay. They make you pay everywhere for a mistake. They make you pay with their speed. They make you pay with their skill. And I think that's a sign of not only a good team with good players, the sign of a really good coach that's got a real good finger on the pulse of this group.
I kind of agree with you there, and that's part of why I find it so funny when I hear criticisms of Mike Babcock, and it's like, well, why's he got Mitch Marner playing down on the fourth line? What's he doing? How come he's got him playing on the fourth line? Well, because he's teaching him and he's helping him grow into becoming a regular first or second line player. And you can do that by playing on the fourth line. It's not that he's underutilizing his talent. It's a teaching moment.
And it is, and so it's a teaching moment by Mike Babcock. It's also a learning moment for the players. You know, one of the phrases that I think is used quite often, and in my own view, the way I define it, sophomore jinx. Well, you know, it's your second year in the league, so when you come into the league, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, let's use them as examples. You know, nobody really knows them, so they're able to, you know, impact the game with their skill, and they're able to dictate a lot of different things. But now the opponents start to go, those guys are really good players. And so now we better mark them. And they get circled on the whiteboard in the locker room before the game. And now everybody's more aware of them. So that becomes the learning moments for the players, because they got to go through this. And I think early on in the season, Mike recognized that. I don't think Mike recognized that. He's trying to put them in a situation where they don't lose their confidence, where they're understanding these are new challenges for you. Last year was a new challenge, and you did very well, but this is an entirely new challenge for you. And managing your players and putting them into situations where they can excel and play to their strengths, I think that is what the master coaches do. Scotty Bowman, I mean, one of the great coaches in any sport all time, he always got credit for putting his players in situations where they could take advantage. And yet, back to your point, Todd, about Mike Babcock, everybody says, why is he doing this? He's doing things to maximize the abilities of his players. Nothing more, nothing less.
Seems to be working out okay for him, too. Craig Button is our guest from TSN.ca. Craig, I want to ask you about the upcoming general managers meeting, because you're familiar with them and you're familiar with the process. And there's a lot of focus and attention on the upcoming meetings because of goaltender interference. There's going to be reports. There's going to be statistics. There's going to be presentations. And I think, again, mistakenly, when video review was brought in, I think after these meetings that there are some people that are looking for some sort of magic antidote or magic bullet to try to clarify and make the process simple and black and white and easy to understand. But it never was, and I don't think that it's ever going to be, even if they do change slightly how the process works. It's always an interpretive call.
Exactly. So, you know what's really fascinating to me, Todd, is I don't know what, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 9, 10 weeks ago, I don't know what it is. Remember there was all the talk about the offside review?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you don't hear anything more about the offside review because it's all about goaltender interference now. And you've nailed it. It's, you know, you're looking at a subject, you're looking at you know, different officials are going to look at it differently and what it is. And in the quest to try to make something that is so gray more black and white, I think it's just made it more gray. Because, again, you got more voices in it. And so, did you see this? What do you think about that? Like, and I'll give you an example. I'm watching the game last night with Toronto and Montreal, and I'm thinking about that goaltender interference penalty on Plekanec, or not penalty, but the goal that was disallowed. And I started to think, if you're taking the puck to the net and you don't get your arms up, but the goaltender's trying to establish his position, you're trying to get to better position with the puck. And as long as you're not barreling over a goaltender, like, I really like the fact that they put into the rule package that they said, if you have to make every attempt to avoid the goalie without the puck coming through the crease. And if you make that attempt and it's not goaltender interference, if you don't, then we're going to call goaltender interference on you. I think that's worked really well. And I think they have to take that same application and apply it to when you're trying to score a goal in terms with the puck. And I thought last night, Buchanan's has taken the puck to the net. There's going to be, collisions. There's going to be contact. And for anybody to think that there's not going to be contact, and that goes for the goaltenders, the coaches, the GMs, everybody, I think it's ludicrous. And I think that that's created a lot of the problem. There has to me, I use the word acceptance. I think there has to be an acceptance that when you're driving the net and you're trying to make a play and the goaltender's trying to do everything he can, defensemen are trying to defend against you, there is inevitably going to be contact. And I think you have to look at it in the context of the play. Is this just a byproduct of everybody trying to make a play? Defensively, offensively, goaltender trying to stop the puck. It's never going to be black and white. And video review, I think in terms of it, slowing it down and everything that goes with it, I think has only muddied the waters even more deeply. So to me, I think you just have to, again, I use the word acceptance for what is and what isn't. You kick a goalie skates out from him, you grab his arm or whatever. I think that that's pretty clear. But I don't think what is clear is on the plays that we saw, the Connor McDavid play earlier this year when he's going to the net and that goal is disallowed in overtime. Those ones just don't make any sense to me, Todd.
Yeah, that's a difficult. I'm not sure how you can do it. I don't think that you should necessarily take the decision out of the referee's hands either. I think that's creating perhaps a smaller group that will make the decision, but it's still an interpretive call. And I don't like the decision coming out of the referee's hands.
Well, I mean, what ends up happening to me is if you take it out of the referee's hands, now they become less decisive. You want the referees to be decisive. What's allowed them to get to this level and to be the best in the world, and I know fans disagree, even managers and coaches think the referees are best. These are the best officials in the world. Like, they make the right call 99% of the time, in my view. And so I don't want that taken away from them. What makes them so good, we get the opportunity to look at replays time and time again. They got to make it in real time. One time, make the decision. I like that. It's not perfect. It's like a player. But if you want to look at video review, that's fine. Give them more, give them a couple more looks and say, what did you see here? What did you see there? But I agree with you, Todd. I think it's got to stay in the referee's hands, because if you don't leave it in their hands, I think now they just go, okay, we're not going to call anything. We'll just leave it in your hands. And I don't think that's a good byproduct of the situation. And if you don't trust the referees, then you got a bigger problem. And to me, you're not always going to agree with them, whether it be a hooking penalty, a tripping penalty, a penalty shot call, or a non-penalty shot call, whatever you want to call, whatever call is being made. But you got to put your faith and belief into the officials.
Craig, one other thing I want to ask you about, because you're familiar with the process and understand it, is there's a lot of focus and attention on the Carolina Hurricanes right now and their new owner, Tom Dundon, who is looking for a new general manager for his team. And he is doing things in a somewhat unconventional way. And I can understand that there are people that are curious about it and don't necessarily agree with it. But I think that a lot of the criticism is coming because of, well, I want to try something different. And for a team that has really been, well, I'll be brutally honest about it, they've kind of sucked ever since their Stanley Cup championship. Why wouldn't you want to change things and do things differently?
Yeah, and I think that we take the word change and automatically people go, oh boy, he's going to change things. I don't know if Tom Dundon is changing things necessarily, as much as he's being very clear about how he wants to see things run. Now, I'm not privy to what his plan is or what his thought is, right? But when you're an owner of an NHL franchise or an owner of any business, you have the ability to run things the way you would like them to run. The only things I would say to Tom Dundon, and I don't care what principles or how you want your reporting to work or what type of personality you want. There's all kinds of different personalities in the general manager's chairs and the owner's chairs around the NHL and in sport. But there's three things that Tom Dundon has to understand and has to be clear on. Number one, where does his team sit currently? What are the strengths of his team? What are the weaknesses of this team? That's the first thing that has to be, clearly he has to understand. Number two, what is our path forward? What are the things that we can do to improve our team in the short term, the midterm, and what's going to take a little bit longer? And number three, most importantly, and I'm going to go back to the Toronto Maple Leafs on this, most importantly, are you prepared to be disciplined and patient with that process? Nobody wants to be patient. I always joke, Todd, and it's not a joke. The next quick rebuild will be the first one. There's no such thing as a quick rebuild. There's no such, you have to have, a lot of things in place. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, when Brendan Shanahan took over, said, this is how we're going to do it. And remember, Tim Lewicki was the president of MLSE, and he hired people and he said, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And MLSE is in fantastic shape because of what Tim Lewicki put in place. And I think that's exactly what Tom Dundon has to do. Now, people are going to agree with, okay, he does this, and maybe because he's been open about the process and open about what he believes in and talks about it. But I can tell you this, Todd, there's a lot of owners that do things much in the same manner as Tom Dundon. They're just not overt about it. So this idea that this is new or that it is, what is very obvious is that he's very open about what he wants. Don't make a mistake, and I would say this to anybody, to think that there's not other franchises in all sports that operate under the same premise that Tom Dundon does. They're just not overt about it.
I agree with you. Great insight. Craig Button from tsn.ca. You should be following him on Twitter at Craig J. Button. Craig, I always enjoy the talk and learn something. I hope we can do it again soon. Thank you.
Anytime, Todd. I always enjoy the time with you. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Craig Button from tsn.ca. And that's the other part. That's a great way that Craig put it, is that every general manager answers to every owner. Well, let's think. Really? Does that happen? Remember when the Ottawa Senators a few weeks ago, Pierre Dorion flew to Barbados to meet with Eugene Melnyk, the owner, to say, here's the plan, here's what I want to do, here's what I think we should do with this team, and the owner had to approve it? Same thing. Exactly the same thing. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. A busy hour number 2 with guest Scott Billeck will join us. We'll talk a little Jets later on. Stephen Laidlaw with the Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. A little Yotes talk, a little Arizona Coyotes talk after the break from Luke Lapinski, Arizona Coyotes radio host. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. Back with more after the break.
So you had to get groceries, take your daughter to dance class, and a pipe burst in the kitchen. You missed Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. No problem. All of our shows are available as a podcast right after the show airs, so you can listen when life gets in the way of hearing us live. Subscribe through iTunes and get alerts as soon as the podcast is available, or go to our website, hockeyunfiltered.com, and listen. Plus, check out the other cool stuff, the Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis podcast. Subscribe now through iTunes. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Nova Product Design is designed for manufacturing. Nova Product Design can get the job done with mechanical and industrial design. Nova Product Design is also fully functional for laser cutting, water jet cutting, plating, coatings, and more. Nova Product Design, innovative design and the latest technologies. Nova Product Design can design, build, and test any required types of prototypes and beta units. Visit NovaProductDesign.com. We're looking for your Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day nominations every Saturday. Now you can send them through Instagram. Use the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. Send us a photo of your dog on Twitter or Instagram to nominate them as the HU Dog of the Day. Include your name, the dog's name, and any other cool details you want. We choose a winner and add them to the Dog of the Day gallery on our website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. Hashtag HU Dog of the Day.
Welcome back. This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. It's the Sunday edition here Saturdays and Sundays, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com, streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app, powered by Primetime Radio. Don't forget our podcasts available as well. Subscribe through iTunes, through iHeartRadio, also available on the Hockey Unfiltered app. That includes our midweek Little Saturday podcast. It's a little bit of weekend in the middle of the week, thus the Little Saturday name. Busy hour right up to the top of it. Scott Billeck will join us in a little bit. We'll talk Winnipeg Jets, who are set to take on the Dallas Stars later on, and Stephen Laidlaw with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, help for you in your fantasy hockey pool. Arizona Coyotes lost last night on Saturday to the Minnesota Wild 3-1. They'll go again with the Calgary Flames coming up on Monday. Luke Lapinski is the Arizona Coyotes radio host. Follow him on Twitter at Luke Lapinski. And Luke, despite the loss last night to the Minnesota Wild, this is a team that has really moved in the right direction over the last number of weeks, probably even couple of months. The Arizona Coyotes playing much better hockey as of late.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on. They just look like a completely different team now than they did in the first half of the season. It was ironic because the exact halfway point of their year came right at the start of 2018. Like, they played their 41st game on New Year's Eve. And they made such a point of emphasis internally on having a much stronger second half. And they really have. Really, ever since the start of 2018, they've been better, specifically over the last 17, 18 games. They look like a different team. They're in every game. The defense is healthy now and much stronger than it was at the start of the year. And the goaltending, even though Antti Raanta hasn't been able to stay on the ice as much as he would like, Darcy Kemper's been good. They called up Aiden Hill. He got a win the other day, so the goaltending's been better as well.
Yeah, and it seems as though I want to kind of draw a parallel between Arizona and Florida with new coaching staffs, new players, and it simply takes time, especially with a young roster the way Arizona has. It takes time for players to learn, for players to adjust, and to figure out their way forward. It takes time for it to become instinctual as opposed to having to think about every move.
Yeah, it really does, you know, and it wasn't even just the young players. The Coyotes have a lot of very young players. They have teenagers on this team, but they also, even the vets they had, like Derek Stepan that they brought in, Nicholas Hjalmarsson, they weren't on the team last year. So all the way back to training camp, Rick Tocchet, who's a new coach, obviously, for the Coyotes at that point, was talking about how it was almost like the first day of school, except nobody knew anybody and everybody was at a new school. So you had that feeling at the start of the year that they just had to get comfortable in Rick Tocchet's system. And like you said, it needs to be instinct where you go on the ice and what moves you make. You can't be thinking about it at this level. And yet at the same time, you can say that and you can believe it all you want, but until you actually see the results on the ice, there's still going to be some doubt. So fortunately for the organization now in the second half of the season, they are seeing those results.
So now with 11 games remaining in the 17-18 season, are there specific goals for those last few weeks of the season, or is it more just to continue in the same direction, keep growing, keep building, and then hopefully take some more steps over the summer?
The overwhelming one I've heard from a lot of people is just that they want to establish themselves as a tough team to play in their building, which they have been much better at over the last month or so. And after tomorrow, they'll play 12 of 15 at home, so they certainly have the opportunity to do that. And then also to really just sort of change the culture. From the start of the year, you could see guys when they came off the ice, they almost seemed a little, not overwhelmed to be in the NHL, but still kind of taking it all in and figuring out where they're supposed to go. The other night, they lost to Nashville by a goal, and they were genuinely frustrated that they lost that game. They thought they should beat the Predators, who might be the best team in hockey. So, you know, there's those two pretty overwhelming goals for the team just in general on the ice. The other one is to really evaluate what to do with Antti Raanta. They want to re-sign him, but you know, at this moment, he still isn't signed. So they're sitting there negotiating, you know, what he's worth. And he's been great when he's been on the ice, but he's missed a lot of games this year.
Yeah, and I guess that's almost the thing is you have to examine, is it just little fluky things that are injuries, or is this something that we're really going to have to deal with going forward? I think it was a smart move to sign Darcy Kemper to that extension when he was acquired.
Yeah, they like Kemper. You know, he's the sort of guy that they still want Ronta to be the number one, and I feel like they've evaluated him to the point where they know they want to keep him. It's just a matter of how much they're willing to pay and how much he's willing to take. But with Kemper, you have a guy that you know, if Ronta or whoever your number one is misses a couple weeks, Kemper can step in and play well. I mean, look what he did with LA this year, and he's been pretty solid with the Coyotes since he came over as well. So that was done with the intention that he's going to be the number two, but the sort of number two that you can see on the ice a decent amount of time over the course of the year.
Yeah, it just kind of gives you a little bit of stability if you need it. If you need to ride with someone for a couple of weeks while your starting goaltender is maybe dinged up or maybe just going through a rough patch, it gives the Arizona Coyotes that. The other question, of course, that the Coyotes are going to get, especially as you get closer to July 1st, is Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and how soon are they going to get his signature on a new contract, and what's going to happen with him, even though he has 1 year remaining.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one, because when you look at what John Chaika has done, and we're starting to get a big enough sample size where we can evaluate him as a GM now, finally, you look at this past offseason, he brought in Nicholas Hjalmarsson, Jason Demers to shore up that blue line. And the offseason before, when he took over as GM, he traded essentially nothing to be able to move up and draft Jacob Chikrin, and he brought in Alex Goligoski. So the very obvious strategy for this team has been to build a strong blue line and work forward from there. And they've done that. I mean, you see how they're winning games. They're winning with their defense, or they're winning with their defense contributing offense. The forward, they're not really getting a lot of consistent offense from anybody yet. You know, that could change. But either way, even with that, they're still in these games and winning a lot of them. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson, to me, is still the best player on what is becoming a pretty good blue line. So, yeah, he's got to be priority number one.
Yeah, understandable. Luke Lapinski is with us, Coyotes radio host. At Luke Lapinski is how you follow him on Twitter. The other thing that I'm curious to see with the Coyotes going forward is how soon can Lawson Crouse grow into a larger role? What about Dylan Strome? There's other young players that you're excited to get into the lineup and take on larger roles moving forward too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we saw Lawson Crouse a decent amount last year, but he was still so young. I feel like there's probably more that he can ultimately give at the NHL level. And I think they're pretty confident that, you know, you will see him contributing at some point next season. The thing with Dylan Strome is, you know, that's exactly what they need. If he could step in, and I think they've sort of, you know, with the new regime coming in since he's been drafted and the new coaching staff and everything, they're not looking at him like he has to be the number 3 overall pick in a draft that had Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel. I think they're just looking at him as, can we get a number 2 center out of him? That would be great. If there's some way he evolves into a number 1, because he's been fantastic at every level except the NHL so far, that would be exactly what they need. You know, even worst case, can they make a productive winger out of him if they had to go down that path? They just want to make sure they get something out of him, but they're looking at him through a different scope than just he was the 3rd pick in a generational draft. He has to be amazing. And that's probably the better way to look at him.
And that's that we find teams that get hung up on that sometimes, that where they were selected, if they're a first round pick, especially where they were selected, is it in the first 5? Well, you have to achieve a certain level. That's not always the way it works for draft classes. Sometimes some are going to be better than others, and there are going to be gems that you find further down. The key, I think, is player evaluation. What can you get from this player? Where does he fit best within your organization?
Absolutely. And I mean, there's don't get me wrong, there's still pressure on Dylan Strome, but I think a lot of that is either external, you know, outside of the organization because of where he was drafted. But I think internally it's more just the simple fact that they really need a productive center. You know, Derek Stepan, they made the trade for him, and he's been everything they could have ever asked for, and that's perfect. And like Christian Dvorak has really evolved this year as well. And they've got Brad Richardson, who's essentially been on the 4th line, but that 4th line has been the backbone of a lot of these wins for the Coyotes. But they really need another top 2 line center, and that's what Dylan Strome was drafted to be. So, you know, like you said, I don't think Rick Tocchet, who wasn't even with the organization when they drafted Dylan Strome, looks at him and says he's got to be the number 3 overall pick. But they do need production from him probably next year.
Yeah, and I still can't help but, even though he's tailed off since the early season sensation, Clayton Keller is going to be some fun to watch for Arizona for a lot of years to come.
Yeah, you know, you get him with the right center, and this is where Stepan comes in. Ever since he's been paired back up with Derek Stepan, that's he's been much more productive of late. Because you're right, he was outstanding in October, and you know you notice him on the ice, but he really wasn't. It was, I believe, it was 6 goals over the span of 4 months. So I mean, that's fine for, you know, where he is in his career and everything, but that's not what you're depending on to be your top goal scorer, certainly. Since then, he's picked things up a little bit. He and Derek Stepan work together really well. So you start to see the foundation of maybe something there.
Yeah, and that should be fun to watch. That's Luke Lapinski, Arizona Coyotes radio host. At Luke Lapinski is how you follow him on Twitter. Thanks for the time today, Luke. Appreciate it. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right, the Arizona Coyotes, lost the one to the Minnesota Wild on Saturday. It's the Arizona Coyotes getting Calgary coming up on Monday. Oh, and Calgary's playing today too, second half of a back-to-back. Oh, that could be good because Calgary's in Vegas today, then have to go to Arizona. That Vegas thing has worked out well for teams. It's a nice hop from Vegas to Arizona. That's good. It's a nice little travel through the Southwest. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports. Coming up before the top of the hour, Stephen Laidlaw will join us with this week's Fantasy 5. Hashtag Fantasy 5, help for you in your fantasy hockey pool. A busy Sunday, which we like. Winnipeg and Dallas, a 7:30 Eastern start. Good news, Winnipeg Jets. Your lineup is getting bolstered. Scott Billeck, who covers the Jets, will join us in the next segment. We'll get the latest on who's going to be back in the Winnipeg Jets lineup. That and whatever else we can squeeze in before the top of the hour. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. Back with more after the break.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. Cutting-edge design for manufacturing, Nova Product Design. Industrial design, mechanical engineering and design. Nova Product Design provides experienced design for parts and assemblies, manufacturing, assembly, and serviceability. From plastic parts to sheet metal forming, mold and tool design, injection molding, and more. Nova Product Design. Visit novaproductdesign.com to learn more. So you had to get groceries, take your daughter to dance class, and a pipe burst in the kitchen. You missed Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. No problem. All of our shows are available as a podcast right after the show airs, so you can listen when life gets in the way of hearing us live. Subscribe through iTunes and get alerts as soon as the podcast is available, or go to our website, hockeyunfiltered.com, and listen. Plus, check out the other cool stuff. The Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis podcast. Subscribe now through iTunes.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis Sunday edition continues up to the top of the hour. Stephen Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com, will join us with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Help for you in your fantasy hockey pool. It's a nice, busy Sunday, a good schedule of games. Detroit's at Colorado. Yeah, Colorado need to win those games. Teams that are out of the playoffs, get those points. I can't believe those Colorado Avalanche are hanging around as much as they are. I thought that they would have slipped. I love the story. I think it's great that they've made such strides this year. Has really given a lot of attention to Joe Sakic. Like, yeah, this guy kind of does know what he's doing, doesn't he? Oh, yeah, maybe you're waiting to make that Matt Duchene deal until you could work a two-way, three-way deal and get a whole bunch of prospects and picks. That kind of worked out okay. Colorado sitting right now with 84 points, same number of points as the Dallas Stars and the Anaheim Ducks, but it's Colorado currently with the first wild card spot based on winning percentage. They've only played 71 games. Both Dallas and Anaheim have played 72. Going to be interesting to watch how this played out. They have surprised me. They have surprised me. I didn't think that Colorado would be hanging around this much, but could they have bounced back that far from that awful, dreadful, horrible, however you want to describe it, season last year to come all the way back and make it into the postseason this year? Maybe this is something that we're going to have to watch for moving forward because of the way the salary cap works, the way teams are making choices and making decisions in terms of player personnel. There are going to be significant swings both into the playoffs and out of the postseason. Because if you're the Colorado Avalanche, you don't want to get into the postseason this year, do whatever you do, and then have to come back and not make the postseason. Kind of the way Edmonton did. You don't want the wild swings in and out of 30, 40 points like that. That's going to be interesting. But a lot of good matchups on the Sunday schedule. Washington, Philly, as I mentioned. New Jersey and Anaheim. How about those New Jersey Devils? 3-0 to start that road trip. Pretty good in Anaheim later today. Dallas Stars and Winnipeg. Dallas needing wins to secure a postseason spot. Winnipeg Jets in a much better spot, and also in a better spot now because of reinforcements coming to the lineup. Scott Billeck covers the Jets for the Winnipeg Sun, for NBC and the NHL on NBC Sports. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scott Billeck and joins us now. Scott, there is good news for Jets fans. Mark Scheifele is going to be back in the lineup today.
Yeah, not only Mark Scheifele, but Adam Lowry as well. So they get two centers back. They're, down the middle now. They're, kind of reinforced yet again. And maybe even see the return of Toby Enstrom tonight on defense. So, the Jets are getting healthy at a good time, and it's for Jets fans, it's good to see Scheifele back, and obviously Lowry too, after missing 19 games and 27, I think, of the last 29 that he's missed. So getting those guys back for the Jets is certainly a boost, especially down the spine on that on their forward contingent.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see the Winnipeg Jets against the Washington Capitals last week with Patrick Laine and Alex Ovechkin, but you could really see as they were doing that tough back-to-back that this was a depleted Winnipeg Jets lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're I think they lost the number was, I think, 7 guys on that road trip, and obviously losing Scheifele early on in it, not having Lowry, losing Enstrom. And having to plug in some guys. I mean, Paul Stastny didn't play in a game. I mean, it just threw a wrench in kind of everything that they were doing. They've had so much success with some lines this year with a Wheeler, Scheifele, and Kyle Connor line. Some success, obviously, since Paul Stastny's come in playing with Nikolai Ehlers and Patrick Laine. And Laine continued his kind of his torrid run here. Well, that happened, but yeah, it's just obviously for this team to be healthy and even they went 3-2-1 on that road trip and did well and other than the first period in that Nashville game, did pretty well in trying to stem the bleeding. They've kind of had to deal with some pretty key injuries and I forgot to mention Jacob Trouba's back now too. So there's just a lot of good things happening for this club and a lot of decisions that now have to be made for lineup changes and that sort of thing with the Jets because they've had some guys kind of step in and play some big roles, and now some of those guys will be sitting, including Jack Roslovic tonight.
Yeah, and that's was my next question. As you mentioned, there's just choices and decisions that have to be made. Is this going to be Paul Maurice managing the roster as the bodies get healthy down the stretch through the final 11 games of the season?
I asked him about that yesterday at practice, whether or not, we've heard about rest and the Washington Capitals did a bit of a reset for Braden Holtby, and that was more of maybe a performance thing, but just resting people. Connor Hellebuyck's played 50-plus games this year, and it's getting close to 60, I think, now. And Blake Wheeler, there was times on that road trip where he kind of looked like he was a little out of gas and having to move to center and that sort of thing. So I think there will be some management. I think that it won't happen probably until the Jets clinch a playoff spot. I think, first and foremost, they want to make sure that they lock down a playoff spot and ideally that second spot in the Central Division with, the Nashville Predators looking like they're kind of out of reach now to try and hit hit that first spot. So I think there'll be a little bit of lineup, management. I mean, tonight they're kind of going with, Paul Maurice takes Jack Roswick out. Well, Jack Roswick hasn't had the best run lately, but I mean, he offers a bit more offensive upside, or probably a lot more offensive upside than a Brandon Tanev, but they're keeping Brandon Tanev in the lineup to kind of even out some of their penalty killing duties and that sort of thing. So, there's some decisions that Paul obviously has to make, and I think he's kind of trying to, err on the side of making sure he has a balanced lineup for all different situations.
Sure, and that makes sense. Scott Billeck is with us covering the Winnipeg Jets. At Scott Billeck is how you follow him on Twitter. The good news is that they get a bunch of home games. They have one road trip, and then they're back at home for their last couple of games of the season before the playoffs start. And I agree with you. I don't think Winnipeg's catching Nashville. They're 10 points back with 11 games to go. But you want to secure that second seed as well. You definitely want home ice advantage. The way Winnipeg is played at home, that's where you want to be playing as many games as you can.
Yeah, 100%. And some of the players talked about that this morning in the prior to the game, even yesterday in practice. Just how important it is to have that home game, that home stretch coming up here. Just to kind of get, just being at home, being in your own bed, that sort of thing. I mean, and then just obviously securing not home field advantage, home ice advantage in the playoffs is something that's at least in the first round we'll get. It just depends how things shake out in the second round, how that might work. But it looks like, the Jets for now, I don't see them. I don't see Minnesota maybe catching them. The Jets have a pretty favorable schedule coming up. They play some teams that are, out of the playoffs. They play the Chicago Blackhawks another time. They play some other teams. I mean, they're going to have a back-to-back, or they have a couple of back-to-backs here. They play Nashville again, but Nashville's coming off a back-to-back. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any payback there for how that game went last week. But there's, I think the Jets are comfortable at home. They have been all season and won a lot of games here, and everything just seems to feel comfortable for them when they are at home.
It's funny you mentioned that Nashville game, and I wonder if that's one of the most important games going down the stretch for the Winnipeg Jets. And the term payback, not in the physical sense, but I think Winnipeg will want to say, look, you caught us at a bad time. That's not truly representative of the kind of team we are. Yeah,
and I think that game again, they'll be healthy. Well, we don't know that for sure, but it looks like for now they're getting healthy, and if that carries into that game next week, then they'll have an opportunity to kind of give Nashville a taste of what they might see in that second round. It's interesting because the last two games here between those two teams are, we wouldn't call them fair games, I suppose. Both teams, the Jets already came off a back-to-back to play Nashville. Nashville will come off a back-to-back. The last time they played a fair game, it was a 6-5 win here for Nashville. Here in Winnipeg. And so, I think it'll be interesting to see that, the Jets will obviously want to respond. They'll want to show them that they can, and I don't think, it'd be an interesting thing if the Jets lost that game, with Nashville coming off the back-to-back. I think the Jets will want to definitely send a statement to Nashville that, the second round will be a fun time if they can get there.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Jets would like to win the game, but if it's another 6-5 game between those two teams, I'm all in with that, because I can handle that kind of, because it's two teams that are really talented, really skilled, and it's an elite level of hockey that's being played.
Well, and it's kind of insane that you're seeing 11 goals against with the two goalies that both teams deploy on any given night. I mean, you got Pekka Rinne on one side, and then you got Connor Hellebuck on the other, and both those guys should be in the conversation for the Vezina. Both those guys were NHL All-Stars this year. But I mean, it's like goaltending goes out the window in those games. And I would love to see a series between those two teams. I think, they both match up physically against each other. I think the agitation factors there on both teams. I mean, you saw Nikolai Ehlers and PK Subban getting into it in the game they played in Nashville last week. I think there's just, and they both have high-end skill. They both teams can score. I think, if you look at some of the playoff scenarios that could happen, that one probably is the juiciest, at least in my mind, of just so much talent going against so much talent. And like I said, I think it could be one of the best series in the playoffs. And it might only happen in the second round, that makes it even more important when if those two teams meet.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? Paul Maurice, Kevin Cheveldayoff would be the first one saying us, now, you guys are getting ahead of yourself. We got to secure a spot first. We want home ice advantage. That might be in the second round, but you're getting ahead of yourself. We want to make sure that we get through the first round. So the other thing that I think is going to get a lot of attention whenever the Winnipeg season is over is Patrik Laine and getting his name on a contract. 19 years old, one of the most prolific goal scorers in the National Hockey League. I mean, they just got to keep adding zeros to that number, I think, going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be, Kevin Cheveldayoff has proved to make some pretty shrewd moves in his time here. I'm not sure if he'll be able to do the same with Patrik Laine. They signed Mark Scheifele, who's an elite two-way forward now in this league, and they got him on the cheap. But Laine is going to want. He's going to want to get paid. I mean, the guy might score 50 goals still this season, depending how the rest of the year shakes out. And yeah, I don't know what a number would be. I mean, I don't think you're looking at Connor McDavid numbers.
No.
But I think when the Leafs sign, and even then when the Leafs sign Austin Matthews, he's still a franchise center, so maybe those numbers aren't the same. But I think you're looking in the high $8-9 million a year for sure with Laine, and it'll be interesting to see how that does play out over the summer if they do. Get him signed and forego that 1 year left on his ELC. It'd be very interesting to watch, and I'd hate to put a number to it and it'd be wrong, because I think it's going to be very interesting to see, how much this 19-year-old prolific goal scorer, like you said, is going to make.
Yeah, I don't want to guess at a number either. That's for agents and lawyers and stuff like that. But it's intriguing to think about just where do you make the move and sign him right away, or do you wait and use the extra time from that third year on that entry level deal? And I'm not sure that that's necessarily a wise move.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it, right? And there's so many other factors with this team with how many young players are going to have to sign. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck gets a contract. Well, he's getting paid now, right? Like he's going to be in for a nice big contract. You got to worry about what are you going to do with Blake Wheeler in a year when he is looking at free agency. The Jets want to commit to him and how well he's kind of turning out to be. Even in maybe some may call it in the late stages of his career. I think Blake Wheeler is right in his prime right now, and so if you want to sign him, there's a lot of things coming up. Josh Morrissey, what are you going to do with Jacob Trouba? Does Jacob Trouba want to still be here? I mean, there's all these different things that have to come into play, and then you realize, well, there's a salary cap, and there's only so much money that can go around. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Jets do, and I think that's going to be their biggest challenge over the next couple of years, is trying to figure out how all these pieces fit and which pieces fit, and probably most importantly, what pieces aren't going to fit and how they're going to have to navigate that. Yeah,
well, it's time for the summer, though. Let's bask in the glory that the Jets are enjoying right now. Okay, Scott Billeck covering the Winnipeg Jets for the Winnipeg Sun and the NHL on NBC Sports. At Scott Billeck to follow him on Twitter. Great stuff today, Scott. Appreciate it. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure. Thank you.
Appreciate it as always. Thanks, Todd.
Scott Billeck covering the Winnipeg Jets. Jets and Dallas Stars, 1 of 9 on a busy Sunday schedule. In our final segment, Stephen Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com, will join us with this week's Fantasy 5, #Fantasy 5. For those of you still in the final stages of your fantasy hockey pool, Stephen's got 5 names for you. We'll look ahead to some of the other great games. It's a good week in terms of matchups as well. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, back with more after the break.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Look, we know it happens. Life gets in the way and sometimes you can't catch the live edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. But we've made it easy for you to catch up on the show you might have missed. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis is available as a podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Blog Talk Radio. You don't want to miss an episode. If you missed the live show, check out the podcast. Don't miss any shows. There's a test coming up later. Subscribe now. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Use the code Get the Savings. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis listeners save with SeatGiant and the promo code TODD. That's TODD at SeatGiant.com. Just log on to SeatGiant.com to find the best tickets to NHL games, concerts, or whatever you want and save. Use the promo code TODD. That's TODD when you check out and you save. Canadian listeners can save at SeatGiant.ca. That's SeatGiant.com and .ca. Cutting-edge design for manufacturing, Nova Product Design. Industrial design, mechanical engineering and design. Nova Product Design provides experienced design for parts and assemblies, manufacturing, assembly, and serviceability. From plastic parts to sheet metal forming, mold and tool design, injection molding, and more. Nova Product Design. Visit novaproductdesign.com to learn more.
This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. It's the Sunday edition at Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles to follow us. It's a busy Sunday. Detroit, Colorado kicks it off at 3 p.m. Eastern. Calgary, Vancouver at 4. Edmonton, Tampa Bay at 5. Oh, that'll be fun. So I wonder if I could make that. It might be tight. Carolina, the Islanders, Washington, Philly, St. Louis, Chicago, Dallas, and Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele, Adam Lowry back in the lineup. New Jersey Devils continue their road swing out west. What a great trip the Devils have been having. Everybody was saying, boy, this is a long trip. This is a tough trip. 6 games on the road. If they can go 500, that'd be all right. And look at what the New Jersey Devils have done. They have won the first 3 games. Lots of good matchups this week. The Wednesday night rivalry game, Boston in St. Louis. Who's going to be between the benches this week with Pierre Maguire? Susan Sarandon last week, games in St. Louis. Maybe they'll put the Budweiser Clydesdales in between the benches with Pierre Maguire this week. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Happy to welcome our regular guest at this time in our regular segment. He is the managing editor of DobberHockey.com with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Follow him on Twitter, Steve Laidlaw, at Steve Laidlaw, and he joins us now. Steve, how are you? How are the playoffs going for you in your fantasy pools?
Well, you know, I could use a little bit of the luck of the Irish.
A lot of people had too much luck of the Irish yesterday, and they're feeling it today. But we'll try and send you some good karma, rub a Blarney Stone for you and the like. So let's get into this week's Fantasy 5 and name number 1 on Steve's Fantasy 5, Ryan Nugent Hopkins of the Edmonton Oilers. And hey, if you're riding shotgun to Connor McDavid, that's a good thing.
Absolutely, you know, one of the most productive players in the game. So any chance you get to skate with a guy like that, you're probably going to put up some points. And since Nugent Hopkins has returned from his broken rib there, he has been scoring at a point per game pace. So certainly a guy who can provide some points for you down the stretch.
Name number 2, we always like to provide a little goaltending help wherever possible, and that would be Philip Grubauer, who's been very good for the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't start off the season very well, but I mean, you know, talented guy like that, he turns it around, and in the second half, he's been phenomenal. You know, providing quality starts just about every night that he plays, and with the struggles that Holtby's been going through, they've been riding Grubauer a lot more down the stretch. So he's the type of guy you could pluck off the waiver wire and you know, maybe get a top goalie for free for the stretch run.
Is, just to jump ahead for a second, is that going to be something worth watching as we get towards the decisions in playoff pools, do you think?
Oh, I don't suspect that Grubauer is going to be, you know, quite as in the mix, you know, come April. Holtby's, you know, he's getting this time to practice and, you know, recuperate and stuff like that. So I'd have to imagine he'll be the starter come playoff time, but anything can happen. But I'd suspect that if Holtby's not on, the Capitals aren't going far anyway.
Fair enough. Our guest is Steve Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com. At Steve Laidlaw is how you follow him on Twitter. Here this week with the Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Name number 3, the B that kind of gets forgotten about sometimes with the Florida Panthers. It's Nick Bjugstad, who's also producing points.
Yeah, ever since they threw him up on the top line with Barkov and Dodonov, that line's been crazy productive. Month and a half now, Bjugstad's been up around a point per game, and he shoots the crap out of the puck. We love guys who shoot the crap out of the puck. If your league counts shots on goal, he's going to provide a ton of those as well.
Name number 4, JT Miller, who is loving life in Florida after the trade from the Rangers.
Yeah, is there anything better than getting traded to a Stanley Cup contender and getting thrown onto a line with Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov? I can't imagine any better result than that. 9 points in 7 games this month. He's clearly been put in a spot to be successful, and it's working wonders.
Yeah, he's got a little luck of the Irish in there for sure. And name number 5 on Steve's Fantasy 5 for this week, hashtag Fantasy 5, is Clayton Keller of the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, not shooting the puck with quite the same vigor that we saw early in the season. But the Coyotes are, they're playing competitive hockey finally, and he's being a productive part of their top line. 16 points in the last 21 games. Most people gave up on him, mid-November, December, that kind of range when he really fell off. He hit the rookie wall. He's back to being productive, so he's a guy you can go out and pick up off the waiver wire for free, and he's probably going to get you some points.
That's Steve Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com, with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, at Steve Laidlaw to follow him on Twitter. Good stuff. As always, Steve, you have a great week, and hopefully you find some of that Irish luck.
Absolutely. Give me a 4-leaf clover, please.
You got it. All right. Thanks, Steve. Stephen Laidlaw from DobberHockey.com. If you missed any of the names on the list, we'll rip through them again real quick. It's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins of the Edmonton Oilers, Philip Grubauer of the Washington Capitals, Nick Bjugstad from Florida, JT Miller of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Clayton Keller of the Arizona Coyotes. We'll tweet out the list. We'll put it up on our Facebook page. We'll put it up on Instagram as well. As mentioned, it's a good schedule of games today. A nice busy Sunday. You can settle in. Maybe you are kind of recovering from a little bit of the celebrations from St. Patrick's Day on Saturday. Just kind of need an easy day to kind of catch up on some hockey. We're into the final 3 weeks of the season. Good games starting at 3 in the afternoon. Detroit, Colorado, Calgary, and Vegas is a late afternoon start in the East. Edmonton, Tampa, Carolina Islanders, Washington, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Chicago, Dallas at Winnipeg. That's a good Central Division battle. Winnipeg getting reinforcements to their lineup. Oh yeah, that's going to be a good game because Dallas needs some points. They are in a fight. And the New Jersey Devils in Anaheim. It's a 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. locals time start. Columbus Blue Jackets try to extend their winning streak coming up on Monday. They'll be in Boston to take on the Bruins. No David Backes. That was a scary injury that he suffered in the game against Tampa, but looks like he's going to be okay. Stitches, no more serious damage. We'll hopefully get an update on David Backes of the Boston Bruins coming up soon. Other good games coming up this week as well. And of course, the NHL general managers meetings taking place in Florida, going to be worth watching because there's going to be an awful lot of discussion and noise created about goaltender interference. I don't know. I think that's exactly what it's going to be, is an awful lot of noise. I don't think there's going to be a lot that's changed other than the National Hockey League will say again to the general managers, to the coaches, hey, shut up, will ya? You can't be running down the product like that. And good for them. You know what? If you work for the company, you can't be slagging on it all the time like this. And hey, GMs, it was you that asked for video review in the first place. So you can't have buyer's remorse and bellyache about it ad nauseum. I don't think there's going to be any big changes. I don't think there's going to be any big change in protocol. I think we're going to have to live with it. Maybe there's some massaging that can take place to make it a little smoother and a little bit easier. But you know what? It's always going to be a judgment call, whether it's with the goaltender or whether it's out on the rest of the ice surface and an interference call. It's a judgment call. Our thanks to Steve Laidlaw, to Scott Billeck, to Luke Lapinski, to Craig Button, to Adam Vingan, and Isabelle Khurshudyan, all for joining us on the program. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Enjoy a great week of hockey into the final stretch of the NHL regular season. Playoffs are coming fast. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, back again next Saturday and Sunday.
The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Being on the World Wide Web is great. Being found is the tricky part. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization is the only way your business can get a leg up on the competition. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. For the necessary tools to make your business stand out in a crowded marketplace, 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday.